Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Good day, this is Sugar Pitogo getting the news line update. Today, let's talk about government. What do you think of when you hear the word government? What comes to your mind? Does the Malacanang Palace at Manila, the workplace of the president? Maybe you get a mental picture of the president or the Congress. So you might even think the word power, politics, rules, control. But can you define government? Try a moment and take time to think. Do you know the origin of the word government? The word government derived from the Latin word governacum, meaning a rudder, and a governor, which means to steer, direct, or control. Government, therefore, the rudder, which means steer the ship of the state, as an agency, an inherent element of state. The government must exist and should continue to exist for the benefits of the people governed. In other words, government is the group of people who control and make decisions for a country or state. So, there are two functions of government. We have the constituent functions and ministrant functions. There's also a forms of government, but according to Aristotle, we have the monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy.
Constituent functions are those which constitute the band of society and are therefore compulsory in nature. The keeping of order and providing for the protection of persons and property from violence and robbery. This is a compilation of the Public Order Protection of Persons and Property Act 1971 that shows the text of the law as amended and enforced on 21 October 2016, the compilation date. The notes at the end of this compilation, the endnotes include information about amending laws and the amendment history of provisions of the compiled law. Another example of constituent functions is the fixing of legal relations between man and wife and between parents and children. The Family Code of the Philippines Executive Order Number 209, Article 1 in the Republic Act of Number 8533. Marriage is a special contract of permanent union between a man and a woman entered into in accordance with law for the establishment of conjugal and family life. It is the foundation of the family and an inviolable social institution whose nature, consequences, and incidents are governed by law and not subject to stipulation. Ministrant functions are those undertaken by the way of advancing the general interests of society and are therefore optional, such as public works, public education, public charity, health and safety regulations of trade and commerce. It is the National Health Insurance Act of 1995, known as Republic Act Number 7875. It is mandated that everyone, working or not, as long as the age is acceptable, they must apply have access to a healthy living. Forms of government. Aristotle classified government into monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. Monarchy, which the supreme power or authority is in the hands of a single person. Most of the time, these monarchs are not elected, with the exception that they are and will base their reign on bloodline known as hereditary rule, or the king, queen, emperor, and duke. They can come in several forms: absolute monarchy, where the ruler rules by divine right; the constitutional monarchy, where the rules in accordance with the limits set by the constitutions. They are then simply figureheads and will instead carry out ceremonial activities. The examples are United Kingdom.
Aristocracy, in which the supreme power or authority is vested upon a few privileged classes whose rights arises from the fact of their birth, wealth, or wisdom. Aristocracy is known as oligarchy, meaning rule of the few, is a form of power structure in which power rests with a small number of people. Democracy, in which the supreme power of authority is vested upon a majority or mass of people to choose representatives to make decisions. Significant in most vote-based democracies are political parties, which are groups of people with similar ideas about how a country or region should be governed. Cory Aquino, the President of the Philippines who brought democracy to the island. State elections, the cornerstone of democratic institution. Voters see their power to choose their leaders as their strongest check on the behavior of the government, their one chance to exact accountability. Long before the Philippines were invaded by the foreigners, our ancestors had already established their government. This government was called barangay. The word barangay came from the word balangay or abode. The first community was called barangay. These barangays were small, self-supporting, and self-sufficient communities. Each barangay was ruled by a leader called datu. The leader of the barangay, the datu, had the power to the people within his control. During this time, there were three social classes in the barangay. The datu as the highest level, Timawa as the second class, and it is composed with the common people. And the Lipin as the lowest class. On April 27, 1521, Lapu-Lapu and the men of Mactan armed with spears and Campilan faced Spanish soldiers led by Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan. After the battle, or now called the Battle of Mactan, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi conquered the kingdom and assimilated it with other kingdoms he had conquered to unite the Philippines under Spanish rule.
The province or alcaldes is controlled and ruled by an alcalde mayor. The unpacified region under civil military rule was called corregidor. In the absence of a governor general, there is the gobernadorcillo. It has the authority to substitute the governor general's duty.
On August 23, 1896, in a then hilly and forested city of Pugadlawin in Balintawak, now part of Quezon City, the Katipuneros led by Andres Bonifacio toured their cedulas. Bonifacio tried to fight with his Katipuneros against the Spaniards together, which sought the independence of Philippines from Spanish colonial rule and started the Philippine Revolution. Bonifacio got wounded during the war between his Katipunero and Spaniards, and healed after by his people. When Bonifacio died, another government was established by General Emilio Aguinaldo, who acted as the first president of the Philippine Republic by virtue of the election in the Tejeros Convention on March 22, 1897. On November 1, 1897, a republic was established by General Aguinaldo in Biak na Bato, now San Miguel de Mayuno, Bulacan. It had a constitution which was to take effect for 2 years only. The republic declared the separation of the Philippines from Spain. The republic lasted up to December 15, 1897, with the conclusion of the Pact of Biak na Bato. Following the outbreak of the Spanish-American War on April 25, 1898, General Aguinaldo established the dictatorial government on May 24, 1898. This is the most important achievement of the government were the proclamation of Philippine independence at Kawit, Cavite on June 12, 1898 and reorganization of the local government. On June 23, 1898, General Aguinaldo established the revolutionary government replacing the dictatorial government. The aim of the new government was to struggle for the independence of the Philippines until all nations, including Spain, will expressly recognize it and to prepare the country for the establishment of a real republic. The First Philippine Republic on September 15, 1898, a revolutionary Congress of Filipino representatives met in Malolos, Bulacan and framed the so-called Malolos Constitution. The Constitution established a free and independent Philippine Republic, which was inaugurated on January 23, 1899 with General Aguinaldo as president. The Republic was not recognized by the family of nations. It was nevertheless was not organized government because it actually existed up to March 23, 1901. In February 18, 1999, the United States annexed the Philippines as a result of the Spanish-American War, and April 1901, General Aguinaldo was captured.
The Spanish-American War started in Cuba, which changed the history of the Philippines. On May 1, 1898, the Americans led by U.S. Navy Admiral Judge Dewey in participation of Emilio Aguinaldo attacked Spanish Navy in Manila Bay. When the U.S. defeated Spain, Spain ceded possession of the Philippines to the U.S. after a payment in accordance with the Treaty of Paris. The first government established by the Americans is the military government. When they captured Manila on April 14, 1898, it was established because of the existence of war. This government had executive, legislative, and judicial power. The highest authority is the military governor. The military government who serve in this government are General Wesley Merritt, General Elwell Otis, and General Arthur MacArthur. The second kind of government established is the civil government. It was inaugurated on July 14, 1901. On 1916, the passage of the Jones Law gave way to the Philippine Legislative. There were 2 resident commissioners who were elected by the Philippine legislature. The first governor was Judge William H. Taft. He was succeeded by Luke F. Wright, the first American to enjoy the title of Governor General of the Philippines. The last Governor General was Frank Murphy, who was also the first High Commissioner of the U.S. to the Philippines. The third government is the Commonwealth Government established on 24th day of March, year 1934. This is also known as the Tidings-McDuffie Law. A new government was inaugurated on November 15, 1935, which follows the first national election that was held on September 12, 1935, with Manuel L. Quezon and Sergio Ismeña as president and vice president respectively. It was established in Manila on February 27, 1945, when General Douglas MacArthur turned over to President Sergio Ismeña the full power and responsibilities under the 1935 Constitution.
The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was the culmination of 2 decades of friction that existed between those countries. Japan's increased efforts at expanding its territory created even more tension with major Western countries like the US, France, and Britain. It was to begin with an attack to neutralize the US Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor on Hawaii's Oahu Island.
The American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
On April 9, 1942, the Americans and Filipinos surrendered in the hands of the Japanese. They endured the infamous Bataan Death March. On January 23, 1942, the Philippine Executive Commission was established with Jose Vargas as chairman. The commission exercised both of executive and legislative power. The power and prerogatives of the commissioner were limited by the fact that each department had a Japanese advisor who acts as the eyes and ears of the Japanese military authorities. On October 14, 1943, the so-called Japanese-sponsored Republic of the Philippines was inaugurated with Jose P. Laurel as the president of the so-called puppet government.
Leyte Island in the central Philippines, the first target. General MacArthur leads the returning Allied forces. Accompanied by his Chief of Staff and Air Commander, MacArthur directs operations from the flagship of the largest ocean-going landing fleet in history. Landing in the heart of the Philippines, Leyte Island, the United States amphibious forces opened fire, an imposing contrast to the tiny naval squadron that took MacArthur under orders from the Philippines 2.5 years ago.
On July 4, 1946, the Republic of the Philippines was inaugurated. It marked the culmination of the peaceful campaign for Philippine independence. Philippine independence was proclaimed and Manuel Roxas became the first president of the Philippines. Third Republic marked the fulfillment of the long struggle for independence that began with the Philippine Revolution on August 23, 1896, and which was formalized on June 12, 1898 with the proclamation of Philippine independence at Kawit, Cavite. On May 12, 1962, President Diosdado Macapagal issued Proclamation No. 28, Section 1962, which declared June 12 as Independence Day. In 1964, Congress passed Republic Act No. 4166, which formally designated where we celebrate Independence Day on June 12. President Roxas moved to strengthen sovereignty by proposing a central bank for the Philippines to administer the Philippine banking system, which was established by Republic Act No. 265.
A government without financial means to support even its basic function.
On April 15, 1948, following a speech before an audience of assembled airmen at Clark Field Air Base, President Roxas died of a heart attack. Vice President Elpidio Quirino assumed the presidency on April 17, 1948. Quirino's State of the Nation address revolved around the people's confidence in the government and the restoration of peace. Agricultural Credit and Cooperative Financing Administration, established by Republic Act No. 821, assisted farmers in securing credit as well as developing cooperative associations to efficiently market their agricultural commodities. Hukbalahap movement was a movement composed of Filipinos that were against by the Japanese Empire to occupy the Philippines. This movement was formed in February 1942 at Nueva Ecija, led by Luis Tarok. They wanted to be free from abusive Japanese Empire, so they formed a squadron consisting of more than an equivalent half-free battalion for the Japanese. In 1948, Proclamation No. 76, government granted amnesty for the insurgent that surrendered army. President Quirino shaking hands with Huk leader Luis Tarok upon issuing amnesty to the rebel group on the condition that they disarm on June 21, 1948. To help the rural masses was the focal point of the populist administration of President Ramon Magsaysay.
I shall use all the force at my command to the end that the sovereign authority of this government shall be respected and maintained. There can be no compromise with this loyalty.
President Ramon Magsaysay was warmly received by the crowd during one of his presidential visits.
Ramon Magsaysay was joined by millions the world over in mourning the tragic death in an airplane crash of the Philippines president, patriot and leader of his people. On the other side of the world, the Aga Khan, Muslim leader and one of the world's wealthiest men, was mourned at the end of a fabulous career which he shared with his beautiful French Begum. In his place, his grandson, 20-year-old Harvard student Karim Khan, was his selection to lead 40 million Ismailis.
First inauguration of President Ferdinand Marcos held at the Quirino Grandstand, Manila, December 30, 1965.
I declare martial law.
The said proclamation was dated September 21. The audience at the Plaza Miranda caught in a panic following the 1971 blast. President and when the ongoing Constitutional Convention produced a draft document, a series of barangay assemblies were held to prevent Congress from convening as scheduled in January 1973. Ratification of the 1973 Constitution marked the end of the Third Republic and the beginning of the Bagong Lipunan, the new society as the martial law regime was called under President Marcos. In 1981, through Proclamation No. 2045, martial law was lifted throughout the country and marked the beginning of the new or Fourth Republic of the Philippines.
Wala, maginamoy pa